Hello and welcome. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert, and this is the China Negotiator. So you're a strategic competitor. Episode 3, Own It. The takeaway for today's talk is our new strategic competitive wind blowing. Embrace it. Do you want a relationship or a transaction? It is your decision, but you only get to decide once. Manage conflicts while they're still small, or smallish. Let's take a look at each one of those in a little bit more detail. Your new strategic competitive position. Embrace it. You are regarded differently than you were a few years ago in international negotiating circles. Counterparties have already re-rated you as a partner and a supplier or a colleague. Denials or anger or half-truths or lies or pleading ignorance or pleading that it's not your responsibility or that it's just not fair, this is just going to alienate your counterparties even more and undermine trust further. It is no longer about the quality of the deal the way it once was. It's about whether or not there will be a deal. So once you were a strategic collaborator, and the assumption was you would get the partnership, you would get the relationship, you get the deal you wanted, and the big suspense would be, did you get 60% or did you get 70% of the joint venture that you can't run by yourself anyway? So the good news is that you get to walk away from the table now. The bad news is that you have to spend a lot of time making sure that you have someplace good to walk to when you walk away from this partner or this counterparty. But if you do want to maintain a relationship, then the attitude is it's a good thing they've got you, because you can be that expensive American partner that they've always needed, just didn't know. And to pull this one off, you're going to take a page from the Chinese book and think back to like the 2000s, when China was seen as this great opportunity that was very difficult to manage. So Americans were strongly encouraged, and in some cases required, to have local partners. And the local partner in China, the approach was always, China can be a great opportunity, but only if you have someone who knows what they're doing. Well, now you can turn that around. You can say the American consumer market or the American B2B market can be great. It can be a great opportunity, but it can also be a dangerous and difficult and racist and resentful place, because that's what they think about it anyway, and you might as well get paid for managing that problem with them. If they want access to U.S. markets or to other foreign buyers in China, then you can help, but for a price. So towards that end, you are going to make the first decision, and the most important decision you're going to make before any negotiation is, do you want a relationship or do you want a transaction? Now, the good news is you get to decide. The bad news is if you don't decide, then the other person is going to decide. So don't think about a relationship in terms of good or bad or right or wrong. Think in terms of appropriate or inappropriate for your business goals. If you know you're going to be doing business with the same person over and over, or someone just like them over and over, then it probably is in your interest to negotiate a partnership of some kind. And the more explicit you are about the terms of the relationship, the better. But for some of you, it'll be best to keep your options open and to open up the bids every time you want to make a purchase. And that could work out just fine as well. It's what's best for your business. And towards the end of analyzing and deciding if you need a relationship or not, look at your supply chain situation. If you're doing business with a Chinese partner in Shenzhen or Guangdong or the Canton Fair or any of the special economic zones, they're probably managing a lot of your supply chain issues for you. Or there's infrastructure in place to take care of that. And if you leave China, you may have to replicate a lot of that on your own. And if you can't do that, then you've got to value that relationship a little bit more highly. And just remember, the default setting for you is casual, competitive transactor. And if that's not you, then you've got to work a little bit harder to make your position clear. And towards the end, let's talk about how to manage conflict in China, because that's going to become more and more of an issue. The more competitive you are, the more likely you're going to encounter conflict. Your best bet is to avoid conflict altogether in China by picking the right business to be in, by picking the right partner and the right deal and explaining it the right way and being an altogether fantastic human being. Yeah, that's a great strategy. So definitely do that when you can. When you can't, look at mitigating or minimizing your existing conflict. Fix problems when they're small. And in China, this is doubly important because, one, the Chinese side will not complain to you in the way you would complain to them. They think that they're making their dissatisfaction known to you, but you don't know it in many cases. So by the time you understand there is a problem, it's already pretty big. Or that's the way it often works out. And next, resolving conflict in China. And when you resolve conflict in China, you've got two options. You can fix things on the next deal, or you can just say goodbye. Fixing on the next deal is how the Chinese resolve conflict with other Chinese counterparties. They don't play private detective and look back at the evidence and figure out who is to blame. They look at the situation and value the relationship and then look forward to the next deal, and that's where they're going to right all the wrongs of what happened before. So the other thing you have to know about resolving Chinese conflict is that in many cases the conflict is intentional and it is the means the Chinese side is using to get out of the partnership without anyone losing face. So before you try to fix things, take a look at the situation objectively and decide if maybe they have a point. Because usually by the time the Western side knows there's a conflict, it's already beyond repair. Final word, don't look for common ground. This was never a great idea. This was never a great approach to international business. But now that Americans are strategic competitors instead of strategic collaborators, building bridges is the way to go. International professionals your value will be judged and rated by your ability to build and maintain networks. So this is going to be a valuable value-adding skill. Thanks very much. I'll talk to you again soon.